Hey, welcome to Made for More. My name is Aaron Burke. We release new content on the first Wednesday of every month, trying to help leaders get better. And I love hearing the reports of so many people listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or those on YouTube. Show me some love by writing us a comment there on YouTube or sending me a DM on Instagram. I always try to repost it. I love hearing how this is helping you. We've got a great collection of both business leaders and church leaders that are listening to this every single month. So I hope it's helping you. Today, I have a special guest with me, and I know he's gonna help a lot of leaders. He already is helping a lot of leaders. His name is David Villa. David, welcome to Made for More. I'm glad you're here. David and I have been close for years now, and you have an incredible business. Give us a little bit of the insight and kind of your story and how you got to where you're at today.
Hey, thanks first of all for having me on. My honor. So I own a company called IPD Agency. We are an ad agency for companies all over Canada and US, primarily have worked in the auto industry for years. And so that's what we do for a living, and we help companies with their brand, their marketing, help them bring customers to their doorsteps. And but my heart and my passion has shifted over the last 2 or 3 years, starting with our employees. We are really trying to implement Christ into the marketplace in a special way. So that's my heart right now.
I love it. Okay, so tell me a little bit of the history of, did you start the business? How did it go?
Yeah, so my wife and I started the business. Well, it started tough. First of all, we were...
Which I want people to hear that, because I don't want you to think this guy's an overnight success. It's been a lot of work.
First of all, I don't think there's such thing, unless it was one long night, really long night, and it's not over yet. So we started in our bedroom, and literally I'm in one room calling on companies in my robe, and my wife and at that time my oldest daughter were in the other room, and I'm trying to keep them quiet, not my daughter not cry, and I'm trying to literally struggle to really make a dream come true. And always felt this call to business, and but it was rough, and went through multiple failures. Matter of fact, the first business that we started ended about 4 years in. I went to work for my father for a couple of years, kind of regrouped, and in 2004 launched IPD.
Okay, but pause for just a second. So the first business failed. You went and worked for your father. There's some people listening to this.
Yeah.
They've tried some stuff and it failed. They haven't tried again. That's a big deal that you tried again. What gave you that inspiration, that challenge to I'm going to try this thing again?
So I'd love to take wisdom credit for this, maybe now, but back then I was just too stubborn to quit. But I think there's something to that, because a lot of people have come to me and said, hey, I want to start a business, or and I'll help somebody if they have the right stuff. But there's been a lot of people that have, I think, prematurely done that, maybe didn't count the cost. And one of the things you have to have, and one of the things I learned is, it's easy to quit. It's easy to give up, and it's not easy to keep going.
Yeah.
So I had to do it. It was just in me, and so I kept getting back up and falling back down, getting up, and I failed a couple of times. And but in 2004, we finally got one right, and it was actually my wife, and she sat down. And she said, "We're going to do this." She goes, "There's going to be some ground rules. We're going to do it this way." And we laid it out together. And that was the beginning. We grew exponentially year after year, grace and favor of God, and a little bit of hard work.
Oh, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work. All right. So let's talk about the dynamic, because I've asked you about this multiple times between you and your wife. Mm-hmm. Working together, I think this is unique dynamic. Right. So you started the business together, worked together. You both kind of run it, but offices on the opposite ends of the office complex. Kind of tell me the flow.
So we started out with them side by side, right? It's kind of like I heard somebody say one time, when you first get married, your feet touch. You're like, oh, yeah, I love you so much. And then maybe 20 years later, hey, can you get your feet off of me?
Right.
It was kind of like that. We were next to one another. We're like, oh, this is cute. We're like husband and wife next door offices. And the newest office we built, they're the furthest away from 2 end zones.
Right.
And it's just simply because we tried to separate the personal emotion, I guess, aspect of it from the actual business aspect of it. We both are gifted in certain areas, and we kind of left it at that. It took a long time. Yeah. But it can be done if we complement one another, and we did. And to be honest, there was a period of time where I excluded her. And that's really another story, but I excluded her and her gifting, where that was what God was really trying to complete me with, and not just in marriage, but in the business aspect. She just knew things I didn't, and she's not listening. Well, she probably is listening, but she's right, a lot. And
right.
So,
any boundaries y'all put in place?
Yeah, we don't, and I know this is kind of cliche maybe, but we do not really talk about work at home, and we've broken that rule even to this day. But we have kind of some safe words or some safe areas where we just escape that conversation and eventually leave the work talk, because it doesn't end well, And I think that's something you need to put in place.
I thought it was funny when we went to breakfast with you guys, and y'all both drove there separate. And I was like, aren't y'all driving to work together? And you're like, no, we drive separate. We have two different jobs. Like, it's awesome.
It is. Well, she comes in too late for me to.
That's what it is.
I go to work too early.
So talk to me a little bit about the business right now. So people can understand a little bit of scale, a little bit of who you are.
Yeah.
So this isn't something that's still in your garage. It's there. Like, this thing has grown pretty awesome.
Yeah. So we are in a pretty big office, 13,000 plus square foot office. We're actually, in some ways, outgrowing that, just with some of the things that we want to do. We serve, of course, the automotive industry. We've moved into small business or business marketing, nonprofit marketing, and then we do a lot of training. It's kind of a lot of things that are pushed together, and I didn't understand why, but the marketplace or the ministry aspect of it, God was setting up something He knew about before He let me in on it, and so now I kind of see all of these things tying in together. But yeah, the business is blessed. We're trying to innovate products. We're very entrenched in the auto industry, but we're blowing it up. I'm expecting this year to break another record. Last year we did so.
That's incredible. So we have a lot of amazing business leaders in the church, and they all do an incredible job. But what I feel like you do so well is you bring Christ into the marketplace better than anybody I know. And the way you work in such a way that really your job is a ministry. And obviously you do ministry in a lot of different ways, but how do you bring faith into the marketplace? How have you done that? What does it look like for you guys? There's probably a lot of people out there with their businesses and they're like, I can't say anything about God. I can't pray with people. And they probably don't know that they can in some ways. Talk to us about how you kind of push the envelope a little bit in this.
Yeah, so, and we do. And so it started as an identity crisis. To be honest, it was not something I purposely set out for. It was by accident on my end. But an identity crisis of ministry and marketplace. Like, I have this call, but I have this job.
Right.
And I was of that same persuasion. You got to separate the two to some degree. And, really my heart for ministry, but yet my time at the office, I began to do it as something personal that I would work on. And what happened, Pastor, is that it just kind of spread, and really God began to send people in. So there were people that were previously in full-time ministry that would relocate from this state, or a former pastor or youth pastor or worship director, or somebody that had been in ministry. Maybe they were hurt, or maybe what have you. God would connect them. And we started being a place where there were ministry-minded people coming in, and they were good also at their job and came in and did well. And so, God began to deal with me, because I still had this ministry calling on why does it have to be separate?
Right.
And so just recently in the last year have we begun to put like a vision or a plan or a process to it, because God began to clarify that. But we started doing it. We saw our business grow. We saw people's lives changed. And then I began to listen, and God began to really say, okay, I've been trying to do this with you for a while. And I wish I could say I was smart enough to figure this thing out, but I mean, it's still developing, but now I'm starting to see the blueprint for it. And
talk us through a little bit of the practice. Like when people come and they're working there, how do they experience God in the midst of your workplace?
So we hired a director of culture, and that person is over the marketplace ministry. That's their job.
That's awesome.
So their job doesn't directly bring us income. Their job is in a business fashion. It would be we're spending money with no revenue coming in.
Right.
But there's somebody said something to me a long time ago, and I think it is appropriate right now. Money's good for my labor, but souls for the labor are better.
Wow.
And I think that if we can tap into that for the right reason, then God's going to take care of the rest. And I believe in the Solomon, story, he'll blow the doors off of it. And I mean, take care of it and do it to get the attention of the secular world and the businesses that are out there. So we have a director of culture, and then we do practical things like we have. I guess the best way to describe it is a weekly chapel with our employees. It's a 15-minute rah-rah, but it's tied to the gospel. It's a message of faith.
Wow.
And so,
mandatory?
Mandatory, yeah.
Wow.
They come in and they do that. Our different departments open up in prayer every morning. We, all of the TVs and the monitors, are promoting like our YouVersion plans and things that we participate in as a company that are faith-based. And then our podcast is, something we do there. Those are just some of the things we just started. We launched an app,
yep.
And we just started virtual like small groups for people in business. So during business hours, they could come into some small groups and actually, learn practical business tips. And we just opened that up and had, I think almost 70 people sign up for small groups in the last 2 weeks. Like virtually.
Right, so we're going to give an opportunity at the end of this for people to get way more information, how to find you, because I know you got stuff on YouVersion, got an awesome podcast. So we'll get into that in a second. Let's talk through any of tell me a couple wins of people that have come to work for there, because I think there's CEOs or presidents, there's people that are business owners that are listening to this going, it just seems so like, it's such a stretch. What's the reward for it? So give us some reward when it comes to you putting such an emphasis on faith. And I've been there to see the TVs and see the prayer gatherings. It's amazing.
The biggest win is when you see somebody come to the Lord, or you see someone that shares some type of life change. And so we've seen that. And we one time, 6 or 8 months ago, we had several employees that after a chapel, we call it Make It Happen, they came up. We gave an opportunity. They came up to individuals separately and privately for prayer. I think 4 came up in one time.
That's amazing.
So that's cool. And then, I'd say this to the CEO, because I know people in business care about the bottom line. Yep. I will say this, that, it opens up the door when you do God's work, and, when you really bring him into your business, you're inviting the favor of God.
Yes.
And there's something about, it's not, so sometimes I think we displace that word where it's not a magic thing. It's God's favor. It's his kindness. If you think about that, it's his phenomenal kindness. And I've been outside of the favor a little bit in my life, in my business, but when you're under it, it's just something special. And I think that God's favor on your business it covers it.
It does. It is phenomenal. And you can see companies like yours, and at a smaller scale or even a bigger scale, when you look at a Chick-fil-A, when you look at an In-N-Out, when you look at these companies that have Christian value, they're implementing faith in their marketplace, how God supernaturally blesses it.
Yeah.
All right, now let's talk through a little bit of the struggles with it. All right, so you're there doing devotions, you're there doing chapel, someone's underperforming. How do you separate the two? You were just praying for me, David. Now you're trying to fire me, or you're putting me on a performance improvement plan. Yeah. How do you do both of them?
I have somebody else fire him. No, that's tough because, where the grace and the it comes in and mixes with the practical aspects of business. It's difficult. I'm not going to say that's easy, because we do run into that, and we've had to, let people go. But what we've seen more, I think, than anything else is it helps us hire right to begin with. And what I mean by that is just looking for someone has nothing to do with their faith. Obviously, it has to do with somebody who can fit into a that's looking for culture.
Yep.
Because culture is a big deal. And we've seen people where we pay well, but they'll bypass more money for more culture. And so I think it helps us to hire right. It helps us to manage, to sit down, to actually put steps in place to say, look, you can do this. You're not doing it right now, but we believe you can. Let's get you from A to B. And but it is tough, to have to sit down and have those conversations. But we've been blessed to not have it be any more difficult than just a normal situation. So we've, and I think that, but that does not mean it's not tough. I'm not good at that.
I think it's important.
Have an HR
most of the time, most of the time it ends well if you've started it well.
Yeah.
And you're saying you catch it on the front end. What I think is so impressive about you and your company is the culture piece, but the culture is not something even you've created, it's something you are. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've seen with you is when people look at highly successful people, you love the Lord, you have a drive for the Lord, but you have a work ethic. Where does that come from? I mean, like, you're a hustle guy. And I think there's something missed with maybe that next generation where it's like, get up early, you're early there. Like, what drives you to that?
So, absolutely. And I 100% agree that is missing to some degree. So I used to be a workaholic. So I could work. I used to work and I actually missed a lot of things with my kids and God got my attention on that as well. So I'm not a workaholic anymore. I just work hard. And I work.
That's a big difference.
It's a difference. So I wrote this mini book called Grind. Yep. Get ready, it's a new day. And I studied the whole word grind out. And I've even used it myself in this way. So I'm correcting myself. Grind. Everybody's like, oh, you got to go grind. Hustle's good, but grind. The actual definition of grind means to turn something into powder, pound it into powder. So the Bible actually talks about, I'm crushed, but I'm perplexed, right? I'm not abandoned, right? I'm not
destroyed.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
And, so grind is not what I am or not what I'm going to do, but I'm going to hustle. I'm going to work hard. And it also talks about reward of work ethic, be like the ant, and Proverbs 18, I think it's Proverbs 18 that says, see a man that's skilled in his work and he will stand before kings, not obscure men.
Wow.
And I love that
verse.
It's
a great verse.
I love that verse. And so the work ethic is there. I think working hard is a big deal, and I think it's missed. And I think that's another element. We don't want it bad enough. And I think that's missing in a lot of people that want to get into business or think they do.
All right. Any other wisdom that you would give business leaders in implementing faith into the marketplace? Anything that you've done? Just last wisdom for that, and I'll throw a couple other questions at you.
I would say don't be afraid to do it. I've been a Christian. I was raised in church, and ever since I've owned a business, I was a Christian. I was a Christian who owned a business. Now we're a Christian business, and I think that don't be afraid to trust God in that aspect, because He is, and also nothing's too small. And I find even today, one of the things I just did this in the last couple of days. I'm a control freak. I just am. And so I constantly am putting my hand back on the wheel, just inevitably, because I'm a doer. And I even do that with God. And I think that, He wants to be involved. He wants to be in charge, and He wants me to rely on Him. And so I think that, and blueprint is just a big word. And I think that one of the struggles that I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially Christian business people, they're struggling with what to do right now, but yet they're just trying. They're just going out and they're trying. Stop, ask the Lord, and get a blueprint, because I'm telling you, He has a blueprint for this season, and it may very well be different than what we're doing. And I just have, in the last 6 months, gone through this where, I was beating my head against the wall, trying to do so many things the same way I was doing it. And He said, you want to see my blueprint? And He's showing me now. He's unfolding it. So
Spirit-led business leader right there. All right. Get me a couple more questions I'm going to throw at you, because there's a lot of pastors, church planners. They're all sitting there going, okay, I've got business leaders in my church. How do I encourage them? How do I pastor them? What's your advice? Because you've also been a pastor. You were in ministry for many years, still in ministry. But so give some advice to pastors listening to this.
Yeah, I'd say to the pastors listening, this is a huge area. I think it was Billy Graham, and I don't think it was long. I know it was probably in the last decade of his life. He said he felt like the next great move of God would come out of the marketplace.
Yep.
And I think that it's ripe for it. I think that so I would encourage pastors to pray about it, because I think it has to be connected. There's some marketplace ministry out there if you look for it, but not a lot of us connected to the local church. And so I think that it's two-sided. I think a pastor should open up and say, okay, how can I impact my city in the area of marketplace? Because every person that doesn't work at their church works somewhere, and they're in the marketplace. And then secondly, I think the marketplace ministry, or people that feel that calling, that nudging, should also plug into and connect with their church. And so I would encourage them to just pray about it and really be open to it, because I promise you, it can take off and it can catch like wildfire. And there's so many different opportunities inside of it. And so it's a passion of mine. It's my heart. And a year ago, it wasn't like I didn't know. Right. And so it's something that God's doing right now in my life. And
I love it.
He's bringing the two together.
We've gotten close because we started a Thursday morning small group that with some business leaders, and then you split off, split off into one of our campuses, which I think is awesome, and then ran your own one for a while. And I think it's so cool to see, despite your busy schedule, you've made time to plant yourself in the house of God, and still doing ministry on the side, doing all this stuff you're doing. So business leaders that are listening, you have no excuse. If David Villa can do it, you can do it. And for pastors that are listening, hey, you got to empower your business leaders to lead. Give them opportunities, give them groups, give them people that they can influence within the church, because now David's making disciples within our church of other business owners. It's been a huge win. All right. You have an incredible podcast. You have incredible opportunities for business leaders to connect. Tell us about how people can get a hold of you.
Instagram is probably the best social media handle to follow me on. As far as our podcast, YouTube, you can go to YouTube and search Game Changer Podcast, put my name in, it'll come up. And also the app. We built an app. We downloaded it just in the last month. We've had incredible traction on the app.
That's awesome.
And it's just for one purpose. It's just the purpose of marketplace ministry, to provide resources for free, and there's a lot of things connected on there for the marketplace marketplace ministry.
What do they search to find the app?
Game Changer by IPD Agency. There's about 80 Game Changer apps of some sort.
I can imagine. IPD. So make sure you check it out. And David, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for how you serve the church and serve God's kingdom. And so if y'all want to know more about him, check him out on Instagram. It's been an amazing talk, learning a lot. What I love about David is he's a very accessible leader. So if you want to learn some stuff, write him, connect with him. He's got great content for you. We will see you next month on Made for More. I'm glad you tuned in today.